the same impending feeling of how, you know, we were going to be in the situation we're in today. It feels like we're looking at it again with the Akaka bill coming. So how and what do we do? If this is the truth or what we know is not true, how do we overcome the impending doom or what seems to be what's going to be compelled on us anyways? That's my question, I guess.
I am not answering that.
Okay.
100 years ago, right?
Same thing.
I think the first thing you should do is just take a good look and read the bill. The first part of the bill, the first sentence, basically is saying that you are an American citizen.
Right.
So you stand up for who you are, or you stand up what they tell you are. But that's basically, I think that's the first thing you need to realize is where you stand.
You will have to respond to that, and then you
Remember, I'm Joseph Navahira, lawyer. I want to give you the legal context. I'm also a PhD in political science. Actually, I specialize in public law and international law, so that's actually my area. The first thing is to do, and I'm not going to say where you should go, what you should do, but the first thing that I would suggest is to understand what's going on. Understand things in context. That's the first thing. Now, if we look at the Akaka bill, first of all, don't get caught up on what it says, because the Joint Resolution of Annexation said they annexed Hawaii. Yeah? You should look at by what authority is it coming from. So if we're looking at the Akaka bill is no different than what used to be the organic bill, okay, and then turned into an act in 1900, or the statehood bill that became an act in 1959. It's still limited to U.S. territory, bottom line. So we're right back to square one. So there's no impending demise, no. It's just added reinforcement to a confusing situation. And the only thing that we can do is to address that confusing situation with context. So the Akaka bill, let's look at it in relation to the executive agreement entered into between the Queen and the President. That's a binding agreement that still exists today. Okay, people might say it's all old. You know what, you still got treaties with the United States that go back to the 19th century with other countries. So it's not old. Okay, it's actually just an international law. Now if the executive agreement acknowledges Hawaii's sovereignty, yeah, but it also recognizes the obligation of the President of the United States to restore that government. And upon restoration, the Hawaiian Kingdom government grant amnesty. That is a binding issue. So if that's an executive agreement at the federal level, all those laws passed by the U.S. Congress since 1898 are actually in violation of that executive agreement, which we call the separation of powers doctrine. But more importantly, U.S. law has no effect on international agreements because it's limited to U.S. territory. So you're still right back to square one. Yeah, so it's just the education of it. You know, I mean, I'm not here to say what you should think, but I teach this stuff at KCC. I teach political science and Hawaiian studies as well as up at UH. So it is that context. It is that context.
I just have to remark that this is typical of Western law today, because they can break the law, but it's such a bully concept. So what are you going to do about it? That's the question. What are you going to do about it? So you say I broke the law, what are you going to do about it? What can we do about it?
There's another, and just to bring on the executive agreement that was covered. There's a difference between having a dispute over an issue and having a violation of a law. Okay? If you have a dispute, you gotta take it to court. Yeah? I hate you. I say, no, I didn't. Okay, that's a dispute. Then you're gonna have to use the law of assault and battery to measure what actually happened, whether you go to a jury or you have the judge determine. Remember when the Queen said that she submitted this case to the United States for arbitration? What that means is it was settling a dispute, an international dispute. When the United States President investigated and negotiated with the Queen, that's a settlement of a dispute. See, in the beginning, John Stevens landed the troops illegally. The Queen said that's illegal, but I'm allowing the President to investigate this, so there's a dispute. John Stevens says, I didn't violate the law. The Queen said he did. Okay? That was settled, so what you have is a settlement. When you're talking about a settlement, that's not a dispute. What that means is you don't go to a court, you actually find enforcement of the violation. And that's a matter of the UN Security Council, which is an international matter. Now, nobody has understood this until recently. So when people start looking at the overthrow, they think that it's not settled. There's still a dispute. You hear the word reconciliation. We got to reconcile. That's not the case, because that was all stated in the apology law, which is wrong anyway. Still limited to U.S. territory. So it's just, again, getting educated on what our kupuna have done in the past in order to know where we need to go into the future. Information that was up here. Actually, up at the University of Hawaii, they're just starting to teach it. So for the last 100 years, we just didn't know. But still, it didn't change it. So now, we are now starting to take the time to learn and to understand what actually happened. And that's a process in and of itself. Yeah. But things are happening outside, I can assure you. I just came back from Big Island serving as an expert witness on this executive agreement in a criminal case, because it affects jurisdiction of the courts. Attorneys are jumping on this thing. Yeah. Because it's not an issue of sovereignty, it's not an issue of Native Hawaiianness. I can be an American citizen. If the laws of the Hawaiian Kingdom still apply, then I have to abide by the laws of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Just like if I'm in the United States, I abide by the laws of the United States, whether I'm an American, British, German, or even an illegal alien from Mexico. Force it now. It's a legal consequence. If the law is the law, then I can tell you it's up to attorneys right now to get their lawyer's hat back on and start looking at this issue to address it. Because that's really all it is. Now, until that time, you might say there are decision makers, and there are those who are affected by the decisions made. That's why this is a legal issue, it's not a political issue. So it's not trying to get everybody to believe there was an overthrow, get everybody to believe that there was an executive agreement. That existed whether we like it or not. It's in the law books. It's just that we've been looking at it the wrong way. You might say we've been looking at baseball using American football rules. We're now starting to learn what the baseball rules are, and everything is starting to make sense. But every time we started to use football rules in a baseball game, things weren't making sense. It was hitting each other on the head and just hurting each other. And now we're stepping back going, wait a minute, I think I might be in the wrong game. Let me go look at the rule book again. Oh, you know what, that is a pitcher's mitt. That is not a football. And here I was trying to throw for a touchdown. That's just part of the education and recovering our memory. Yeah. So we're just recovering memory. But things will happen. Things will happen.
My question is, this seems to be an international affair. We're trying to educate ourselves internally, but there's just a lot of noise and distraction going on to prevent us from moving forward. Who do we have as allies, international allies, to assist us in the world courts or wherever we have to settle this, because it's not going to be settled in the United States. We're under the delusion that we have to go to Congress and we have to settle this in the United States. That's not where this is going to be settled. Who do we have to assist us, and have we begun making allies and putting together the people that we need to assist us in getting back our own nation?
Okay, the Congress is the wrong place, because under the separation of powers doctrine, Congress and courts of the United States are limited to U.S. territory. The executive is the president. They get involved with international matters. Yeah, that's why they send diplomats out. Hillary Clinton goes out, ambassadors go out, those things. This is an executive matter. And actually it's very federal. It's a federal issue, because that executive agreement is a federal law, and state law runs contrary to that. Because the state of Hawaii cannot claim that it's that restored government under the executive agreement. It can only claim that it was created by the U.S. Congress in 1959, which is limited to U.S. territory. So the focus is actually moving towards the president, okay? And President Barack Obama is a successor of President Grover Cleveland. Okay? So as an officer, he's still liable. So the focus is there, and also with the U.S. military. That's an extension of the federal government. Now, as far as international, it begins with their own understanding and knowledge. I'm invited to go to London to give presentations to the University of London Law School regarding the executive agreement and the continuity of Hawaii's sovereignty as an occupied state. That's where it has to begin, in the colleges, in the institutions, in the schools, so that it becomes normal talk and it doesn't become political rhetoric, like somebody said this.